Dungeon of the Endless is a roguelite tower defense game. The roguelite part does fit the tower defense. It has elements, not as much. A couple things quickly. The multiplayer is here. You can have up to 4 players, and it checks all my boxes of public, private, and then up to 4. Even though you start with 2, you can add more characters, so then the players that are in your lobby join later. I don't recommend the game because of the crashes, though. Even though this is one of my favorite indie games of all time, really, it's those crashes destroy it because it is a long game, and you, if a game crashes, it doesn't save, so you have to start all over again. Oh, what's the point? Story. You are aboard a prison transport that gets shot down, then you go into an escape pod. Each of the escape pods have different parameters that affect the game. This is the roguelite aspect. Things like building your modules, which are your tower defenses, your character, how they heal, the enemies, etc. And then you unlock them if you complete different tasks within the game, like unlocking characters or doing something in particular. The start of the game and each level, there's 12 floors, is procedurally generated. This is the map layout as well as the enemies that you will be confronting. But you're seeing the beginning of the game. Here I am on the crashed ship with my 2 random characters, which is my usual way of playing these games. And then when you enter that first room, you'll see it is dark and unpowered. You can confront enemies, potentially. It's a roll of the dice here. If, when you have completed the room, though, the fighting works, you're not directly controlling the character. They are fighting back if they are in the room, as well as stopping enemies. But each of the rooms, if you choose to power it, then enemies don't respawn, and then you can build these large modules. You have 3 resources here: industry, science, and food that do different things, such as building modules for industry, upgrading technology for science, or resetting your abilities, and then food, upgrading the character, as well as healing them. The 4th resource is the dust, which is power in this game. This is accumulated by taking out enemies. They drop dust, or entering rooms and other random events, which I'll get into later. Managing these 4 resources, though, is the direction where you want to go while you're trying to exit a level. Now, going back to the first level that you're seeing here in the game, I'm opening doors with 1 character, going to the right, going to the left, and depending on what I encounter, I might change direction. So, for example, I'm in this middle room. This is a choke point for the doors that go into 2 paths. There's one in the right and one in the left. So my goal here, common sense thing, would be to close off one of the doors and then build my towers, which are the minor modules, in that center one. But I have those 2 resources. You see in the top left my industry, which is the red, the gears, and science, blue in the middle, food, the green right next to it. But going back to the bottom, I have that major module that is just sitting there. And as long as it's not destroyed, then I accumulate a little bit more of that industry. So I want that later on. So that first level, it's a game of getting through it without having to build too much, because the more doors that you go past, the more resources you get. And since there aren't too many rooms on that first floor, you don't want to be building too much. Here is my encounter with the merchant. That is the shopkeeper unit in this game. And this is random too. They really did a good job with the roguelite. I think it is deserving of it because of the amount of randomization with the encounters. When you encounter a merchant, what you can buy or sell equipment for is random. It could be industry, science, or food, back to those 3 resources. And then along with that, if you have random characters, like I do, the type of weapons that they can use is limited. There's a spear type of weapon, a small handgun, a machine gun, and some characters can't even carry a weapon, but they have like maybe some other slot or some other attribute. So a lot of variety, especially if you want it, like with what I'm doing here with my just random characters with random encounters. So, okay, so early on here, I powered the room off to the side, and I found the exit That's the little exit guy with the diamond. But I'm continually opening the rest of the rooms just to get more resources. Sometimes this isn't worth it. Later in the game, the last couple of floors, few floors or so, you don't want to open all the rooms, because the more rooms you open, the more enemies you encounter, and the difficulty goes up. While I'm doing that, though, you see my research, the glowing blue on the relic, on the room to the left, I researched, and I have 3 doors to have that research completed. If you have like a door or 2 left, and you have something researching, it just automatically researches whatever was left on that relic. So you can see this is just the first floor, and there's already a decent amount going on. So there isn't that boredom that you have with some roguelites of, okay, you gotta start over again. And even though this is a long one, it would make it unplayable. There is things going on that you're learning as you're going through it. You're not just, well, I'm bad at the game and now I have to start over again. So I'm opening the last few rooms, and even though I played this game a bunch of times, I revisit what each character's attributes are. For instance, the knight character that is moving around, he collects dust a bit more from the enemies after I kill them. And the blue guy, he's one of the native characters, is the relic. As I'm researching something, he has an attack boost. Some are better than others. There are a couple. Josh is one that he can boost the modules early on. A lot of people like, including myself. And there's another attack, kind of Contra-looking guy, Gork, that he has a higher attack and is very slow. And that there's a lot in between, and it doesn't necessarily matter that much, because the items that you get, it's more influenced by that rather than just, oh, I have this character. And if you have them by themselves, they're not working with some of the other ones, then you're going to have a rougher time, even if it is one that you do like. So I'm getting towards the end here. You see the outline of the doors. It gives you an idea. And as you get farther through a floor, you'll see how many of the rooms are left. And you can kind of plan out your moves a bit. So here I'm getting a little bit lucky. I can research a few more things early on. You really want to research the major modules, the industry, science, food, again, because if you do, then you get a boost. But here I opted for the industry and the science one. I stray away from upgrading the characters, because farther into the game you will encounter random characters, and they will be at a pseudo-random level. Like the farther you are, there is a possibility that they could be a higher level. There's a recruitment cost, but it's a lot cheaper that way than if you would upgrade them. And then if there's one that you like, when you sell them, you don't get a lot of food, and then they just sit there. But even this too, there is a tension that if you leave them, they still fight creatures in the room, and certain types of creatures will attack them. Certain types of enemies will attack your modules, your minor modules, your major ones as well. So the complexity is there. Even though this is an indie game, it is all in with dungeon crawling. That really is a better description of this game. It's more a dungeon crawler, I would say, than it is a tower defense. It gets the tower defense description because of the turns that are happening in real time. Here I've opened the last door though. There's my +9 dust that you're seeing, and then the one thing is the middle one, top middle, is my dust. You see how some of them are grayed out? That means I haven't used those two to power 2 rooms. Mouse and keyboard, it's unfortunate because of the crashes. I really hope they get fixed. If it didn't have them, and it may really, there's complaints about it already, but it works very well, much better mouse and keyboard than it does controller. It's not as big of a deal compared to other games because you can take your time. You're going room by room and planning. But with mouse and keyboard, I can go out, I can see where the overall map layout. I can click on a guy, or I can use the hotkeys, up to 4 characters. I can even group the hotkeys to go from one to another. Here I'm back to the merchant. He's selling for science this time, and I'm looking at the items. You see the second one, that's the kind of machine gun, but neither of my characters have a machine gun, so it's useless. But I may encounter somebody later, so it's not necessarily a bad idea to have one of those or have a couple items. And even here too, you can't abuse too much. That is an important part. And with that aspect, what they do is there's a limit in your backpack, your inventory, how many items you can hold. The last part to escaping that first floor is one of the 2 guys you have has to grab the crystal and go to the exit. Once they pick up the crystal, they're much slower than their attributes say that they are. So what you need to do is decide what path you want to take. You can start unpowering rooms and then power the best rooms for the direction that you're going, and then use your other character to defend them if you need to. And sometimes this will be very easy. If you've opened all of the rooms, you might have enough dust where you can cover enough rooms that you don't have to worry about this. But once both of you are in the room, you can leave. Sometimes you leave without them if you have to, or you make a mistake. In between the rooms, you see that there's 12 in total. There are dialogue. This is the additional part of the story. And if you have 2 characters that have a dialogue together, there will be a sequence of events. As long as they are together, they don't die in between floors. And then you unlocked some art, some character art in the kind of achievements bonus thing. And this is actually a lot of fun. It's not just a tacked on, it's hand-drawn type of art. Now here I have the first guy I'm adding. It's very cheap early on. That was only 24 food, but you don't know who you're getting. And sometimes you'll have the characters you don't want, but you might as well max out with 4, because the more that you have, the more you can defend the crystal in the middle before you get to the other floor. But even, again, here too, I'm familiarizing myself. Variety of characters. Some are better by themselves. Some are better with certain other characters. Some abilities help you accumulate dust. Others just attacking characters. And like I said before, others just defending the modules. But once you get past the first couple floors, then you really want to be building a lot more of those modules, decide the direction that you're going. Now here I'm looking at one room and another. This one I see has 3 entry points. So I'm guessing, and it's likely, that there are more rooms on the left side than on the right side. So having that middle room, and then I'm likely to build minor modules. But early on you don't have to mess with this, because the less dark rooms that are open, the less enemies that will be attacking you. Here again, I'm opting with industry and then science module. I find those to be much more useful, at least early on, and then later you're accumulating food. But here even too, they limit the exploit by it being incredibly expensive to upgrade the last several levels of your character, and you're weighing that versus building the tower defense minor modules, major modules. So, equipment, buying a little bit there. There I have my armor. Most of the characters have their weapon, their gear, which is their defensive equipment, and then the wrench on the right, that can be defense. It can be a variety of things that can increase their attributes. The attributes, you have your usual ones: attack, defense, speed, which is just how fast they move, their cooldown attack rate, that's how fast they will attack, wit, that is their intelligence, but this is affects when they are supporting or repairing a major or minor module. It affects that, and this is the main way that they separate the defensive versus the pure attacker. But then you have the scouter on top of that too. You want one fast character, or relatively fast, to grab your crystal, exit the room, but also to open the doors if you want to run in a deep area where you have a lot of unlit rooms, which you may be forced to because you don't have enough dust. Here, the first enemy is getting through. And there's, like I said before, there are different types of enemies. Some will just make a beeline straight for your crystal and not be stopped. Most of them do stop, though, in the room if they are attacked by one of your characters. So you're not always putting them all, you're usually not putting them together. That's just early on, especially later when you want one guy just sitting, upgrading one of the modules. So now here I'm still sticking with my second guy. I could use the third guy because he does well in the dark. So even here there are some play style choices. Apart from the economic, where I'm sticking with industry and science to upgrade the characters. But here I use the third guy there because he attacks better in the dark, and then he can get dust more quickly. And the blue guy, he's functioning as my wit. You see him operating, it's called, a module, and then that boosts the industry. And there isn't confusion of, am I doing this right, am I doing this wrong, because you can see everything all the time. And on the top middle, I see all my resources. I see the plus, however much amount each one is. And then when I have someone operating it, if it's working properly, then it'll bump it up more. So this is well done too. Games with a steep learning curve, the problem is you have to do too much trial and error sometimes, or you got to read through the options menu like an encyclopedia to understand what is going on. This one you don't. You can see what is going on. Then even if you want to learn about a character, when I put my mouse or my cursor over their ability, or over the armor that they have, or anything, it'll say what it does. And the humor is good with this one too. There are some jokes about each of the characters, and not overtly, it's done in a subtle way. The energy line shows the direction it's going. When you have a path, it'll do that, but you can tell, especially when you exit the menu. Now here I'm taking some risks because if there are too many rooms open, I'm going to be in trouble. But you notice how I'm building modules in an area where there is more power. Now this is kind of my central point. I'm deciding on that area being the choke point. So I'm building more of those small lasers. Those are the minor modules. And then I'm moving my other two guys farther away. Just building a couple because I don't think there's too many rooms left on this floor. My food replicator was upgrade. I'm periodically going to the relic and upgrading. That means I'm gonna get more resources. You probably saw the difference in the top middle, the green part. And here I am moving back. And there I made a choice of the blue guy. I decided to move. If they leave a room and they're operating on it, then you have to wait another turn, opening another door, for them to operate on it again. Sometimes you want to do this. A lot of the times you get too greedy, which is another important aspect of roguelites, the risk-reward. And you don't have the character leave soon enough when you should have, or you should have left the floor, and then you lose all the characters. You lose the game. The last one again. There, I just wasn't paying attention. You're supposed to sit there. And I've upgraded another major module. Very important early on. Get those upgrades just for the major modules if possible. You can reset. You're limited in how you can upgrade. They give you 4 choices, and if you don't like any of them, you have no interest in them, you can reset, which has its own cost. So oftentimes, it's worth upgrading something anyway, because then you get it out of the way. The DLC that they have added, this game is in the retro space for my reviews, since it came out in 2014, late. The DLC that they have added, though, when I played this years ago, you are able to upgrade everything, and then you don't have to deal with science as much. But now there are so many different type of minor modules that it's almost, I think it's impossible to upgrade everything for a 12 floor playthrough unless you focused entirely on it at the expense of all other aspects. I'm still sticking with my second guy to get to the exit. Again, all the floors are procedurally generated. If you don't have, most of the time you won't have dialogue that is engaging. They'll just say random dialogue in between the floors. Now, 12 in total, so you see how long the game is, and this is why it can't crash. And this is what happened. I was at 96%, and then boom, it crashed right there. That was better. So I wasn't, 20 minutes, 15 minutes into the game, but if you can be as much as well over an hour, up to 2, and then if it crashes, you lose everything. You have to start over. It'd be okay. I'm forgiving with crashes if the game at least saves and you can restart it. Obviously, if it's a multiplayer game, it destroys the game too, but at least if you're playing single player like I am, you can get back into it. So now I have a different crew. This is a bit farther into the game. You see there I have Josh. He's the module guy. I have equipment that does different things. A variety here. It can affect your speed, your attack rate, attributes such as the wit, that's a big one, health regeneration. But the more that the character is upgraded, or you upgrade your character, you get more abilities. And along with the minor modules that have been added with DLC, they've added quite a bit more characters too since the last time I played this game. Several years ago, really. And they have their own abilities. They didn't just tack them on. There is a difference with the new ones that were added here. But now you see I'm making bigger choices. See, my modules are completely upgraded, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, +4. My minor ones, too, I've made some choices on which ones I want to use more than others. And there's some experimentation because I'm not familiar with the new ones where I'm trying to get more of the industry. Those I don't find to be as useful. You see my relic, though, that I'm upgrading, it's not in a powered room. You can do that. The thing with that is some of the enemies, especially later in the game, because you're fighting more different types of enemies, will just attack your relic stations even too. So leaving them out there a ways, you gotta make some choices on which ones to upgrade. And you might even have several where you just leave them and then you know you have one door left, you upgrade all of them, and then you get all 4 without any risk early on. As you get later into the game, though, you want to have at least one of each, like one science, one food, because you can lose track on the resources, and then you may be healing a character and you run out, you're out of food, or you want to upgrade something or reset the ability cooldown, and then you can't with science. Industry being the most important across really the entire game. It's only sometimes with food later on you can upgrade, but with that one then you can't build anything. It affects everything. So I'm doing a lot more with healing the characters. You don't want to be doing this too much. If you're healing them too much, then they should really be upgraded or gain some type of equipment so that they're stronger. But now here I'm deciding whether to spend the high cost to upgrade the module or not. The zoom in feature, I think that's new with this one. It zooms in when you encounter a new character. You make choices with this of if there's a one you don't like or that is too low of a level, you may like to switch over. But it depends on the type of character that you encounter. It might be useless to your team. You already have a fast character, you run to one. You already have a module character like I do, or an attacker, etc. Dust collector. But now here I'm sitting next to this one. And you can go about it a variety of ways, like an example with Relic, where I'm upgrading. I have a station there next to my major module, and then if they do attack it, I can just move a couple characters over, and then I'm good to go. also what I'm doing with that girl that I didn't recruit. They function as free defense. And they will also be attacked by certain mobs too. It doesn't function the same way as your own group, but they can be attacked, and then once you get used to the icons, you can see when something is being attacked, whether it be one of the, like there she was attacked, you can see the little sword guy, and then once that disappears, then they'll be taken out. So she's still there. I can still see the icon going. There's other types of enemies too that you have to pay attention to. There's that blob guy over there. If the longer it takes me to knock him out, where he's in a random room far away in an unpowered room, the stronger that he gets. And you don't heal your characters until all the enemies are taken out. So you want to get to him quickly. And here, going back to speed can be useful, even if the character's attack isn't as powerful, because if they get there sooner, they can take him out before. One that they did add is the dust jellyfish in this one, I noticed. That is there in the opposite capacity, that you have to take them out quickly, or they disappear if you don't. So it's something you can ignore, but it's if you get there quick enough, if a character is fast enough, then it helps. And there again with the relic, if it isn't upgraded, it isn't glowing blue. There's my 4 upgrade paths I can go. And you'll find that some things you may ignore. I've had games where I ignore science because I have sufficient modules upgraded, then I'd rather get more revenue from my industry or food. The rooms themselves too, they'll have only so many slots for your modules. So some are going to be better than others, and these of course are randomized as well. And there are sometimes rooms affect. There's this gas cloud thing in some of the rooms that can slow down the enemies. So sometimes you get lucky with them, but given the variety of things that can happen, it doesn't always play to your favor. But yeah, it did with this one. The room on the top left is very large, so it takes them longer to travel across. And then I have that gas cloud, so it takes them longer. And then you have the factors of the modules. The more, it may just have a couple, or it may just have a few, and this can influence the type of modules that you put in. You might want one that slows them down, or one that attacks the entire group, divides their armor. There's quite a bit here. Here I have my prisoner prod. This is the cheap defense. I use these if it's uncertain or I have just a path that they're crossing, because you don't want to just put the most expensive modules in, because if they destroy them, then you'll just run out of more money. So sometimes having some cheap ones put in at different locations can help. Here I'm putting my food one, and it's not even necessarily a bad idea to put one of the modules, even if you have a dark room, like a couple somewhere, because there will be less enemies, and then you have the probability of them attacking it is a bit lower. But here you see the form of the modules when they're more so upgraded, closer, some are at max level. And one final thing with the major modules, the more you build, the more expensive it gets. So they remove that exploit that way. Otherwise, you would just build a bunch early on and get all kinds of money. So it goes up in increments, like up to 60 or more. So you're limited in how many that you build. The greater variety of enemy types, though, has made this game better, I would say, objectively. Because they're, again, I'm the guy that played this several years ago. I'm adjusting my strategies to the different types and learning their behaviors a bit. So it makes it more challenging, more engaging. It's not just, oh, the difficulty is artificially harder. And this, the benefit with that is the types of characters that you have. There's greater weight to their class type, like the module one, the speed, and the attack defense. Here I'm getting to the end. This is one of the new ones, the the 2001 Odyssey robot-looking one that I'm controlling because she's the fastest. And her ability is if their HP of the enemies is low enough, then they explode. But you get into situations of a lot of dark rooms later on in the game. And the reason I am in this situation is I don't have a character I'm using that collects dust. And you'll often be in that predicament. It's one of... Attack is the obvious one, as well as speed, and then the income module. The one that I bet people miss, or at least I do, is the dust collector, as I call it. And some of these characters, and they do it in different ways. There's one that every time they take out an enemy, they collect dust. There's one if they're in a dark room, they collect them. But I'm using the other one, the other guy, because they're faster. Whereas my knight that you're seeing there, he has a dust collecting skill. A lot of the abilities will... Oh, pickpocket, that's what I'm thinking of. The abilities later on, they'll get a lot of the ones the other characters had early on. Like pickpocket, a lot of them will get them, but it might be when they're level 10 rather than when they're level 3. So that gives you an indicator the type of character that they are. Defense mainly goes with attack. That would be the 5th class, would be defense. They're better at that, where they're better, or repairing a module. Yeah, there is just really so much, and they interchange. Like you might have a guy that is good at boosting modules as well as repairing, but these aren't together at the same rate. You might have, there's a character that is the smoking girl is good at repairing, and then her buffing the module thing is later. And you can pick up equipment that does this too. There's that blob guy I'm taking out in the end. So approaching the end of this one, but later on, as you can see, it is much more complicated in the direction that you're going. You can't just blindly go into rooms. You have to really plan out your moves. And then there's my attack guy, Gork. All of them have a weakness. His speed is very slow, which is offset because I can use his ability if I have enough science. But he's not going to be a guy you want to go room to room because it takes him so long to go. See how slow he is? Contra guy, I call him. And here, taking more time. Now I'm in the position I see how I reset a module, because you don't mind upgrading early on because it's so cheap, but later on, when you have all the ones you need and you just need a couple, then you're in the position of, well, I'll reset it. And finally here, just showing you what happens when you lose a game, which if you're me, oftentimes does happen, especially since I haven't played this one in years. Also, it is on Game Pass right now, so that it is something to check out. But as the crashes work, I played this quite a bit on console, on the Xbox One years ago. Never had the crashing issues. So if you are interested in the game, pick it up there, not PC. Just keep an eye on the forums, or otherwise, if you have played the game on PC recently and the issues have improved, please leave a comment below, or if you want to go into greater detail, your own experience, how it has worked with game crashes. But this is a game I definitely recommend. It's in otherwise apart from that, but you know, it's got to be fixed first. Reason being, it's for an indie game, and the best part of an indie game, I mean, not just because it's a roguelite, there's plenty of terrible or boring roguelites over time, is the direction that it goes as an indie game and the attention to detail along with that. There aren't any weaknesses really with it in concept, as well as the features that you'd want to use based on the gameplay mechanics. There's even multiplayer with this. I mean, public and private you can use for 4 characters. Are too many people going to want to play it? Probably not, because it's a 2-hour game. But you never know. There might be, if you get a laid-back group, you could, that is okay, sitting around 2 hours waiting until you find a random character in a random room and then they can play. You never know, but there is the up to 4 there. But what sets this apart from most other indie games is it is its own genre, really. It's not in the tower defense genre of, okay, here's a wave, I can build these up, I get my currency through taking out enemies. You don't even get, you get a currency of power, which is separate, but the majority of it, the industry, science, and food, is through opening rooms, building modules, and then you have the research. This is all separate. And then even the heroes themselves that you have, your 4 characters, compared to a game again like Kingdom Rush, even though those upgrade, you don't have the complex class types, the RPG elements of, okay, I need to decide which equipment. Some equipment gets stronger, upgrading the characters, deciding how to use their abilities. There's far greater complexity. But really the tower defense aspect doesn't apply because you're going to the exit, opening rooms, and deciding which way to go. You're not stuck to a rigid path, and you don't even have to build the modules. There's much more variety there. But really the attention to detail, along with all this too, of deciding what you want to do with the equipment. There isn't necessarily wrong decisions, only in hindsight. I mean, with the amount of randomization. But all the aspects do work together, and they've built upon it over the years just to give it greater amount of complexity with the characters, enemies themselves, and then also the parameters that you can adjust. There are more of those escape pods that you can do one and another. It's not a game to be afraid of, even though, like I said, it's a steep learning curve. You can learn everything in-game. You don't have to go out and go to the options menu or mess with any of that stuff. But finally here you're seeing how I'm losing. I'm running out of food, which is often the case. Maybe I should build more. But or not enough modules. I'm getting greedy. I have the upgrade one there. I don't have the defensive one that I should have. But if you are picking this game up through Game Pass, please check out the link below. If you like this video, please give a like, subscribe. If you really liked it, let me know what games you're interested in or what you think about this one in the comments below. And I will see you next time.
Down, 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 down.